Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV commentary, starting with one of my favorite shows, Big Brother. In this episode, I'm chatting about Celebrity Big Brother Season 3, Episode 6. And tonight is all about the new HOH and the nominations. All right, so tonight they pick up at the end of the last eviction where Mariah was sent home. SNL Chris is still a little confused and shocked that he stayed. Remember, he gave that big speech where he thought Mariah should stay. Let's see. Carson, he picked up on Mariah's shade of the so much older comment. Remember, Mariah said she was having such a tough time in the house because they were all so much older than her. Now, I mentioned that in my last eviction episode, so you have to go check that out because I caught that shade as well. All right. Then SNL Chris, he's running around the house saying, "What did I do wrong?" Like he really doesn't understand the game. And quite frankly, I'm almost over him not knowing what's going on and how the game works. And it may be time for him to just exit. If he wants to go home that bad, just leave. All right. NSYNC Chris, he's doubting his target leaving, Mariah, right? Because he was aiming his target at her. He got her out the house. And he's wondering if that was the right move, right? And to me, it's a little late for that, but that often happens when we see people that get HOH, they get all this information. Like I said, once a person gets an HOH, they have so much information coming to them and they have so many people attempting to make deals with them. So you can get overwhelmed, right? So he's hearing all this information. I mean, he goes in thinking one thing, but after you hear everyone throwing information at you and you're looking at the game differently, it can mess with the person, their psyche. So now he's wondering, did I make the right move? But it's really too late for that. Misha is stuck on a loop, on that same loop. She just wants to get Carson out. She keeps repeating it out loud over and over again. I'm sure that loop is playing more in her head. But now she's starting to be more vocal about it because she is sharing that with now Todd Bridges. I don't remember seeing her saying that to she said it to, let's go down the list. She said it to Todrick. She's said it to NSYNC Chris. She said it to Lamar. She's now said it to Todd Bridges. I don't think she said it to Shayna because Misha really doesn't talk to the girls. So pretty much half the house. Everybody knows that she wants Carson out. All right, so now she's just trying to convince other people in the house that Carson is the biggest threat. And I'm still not sure why, other than the fact that Todrick put that thought in her head early on when Carson was his target. And I thought that was a clever move on Todrick's behalf. But Misha really doesn't have a reason other than that it was planted in her head by Todrick. All right. They brought back Kato Kaelin, I think that's his name. And he got his fame and celebrity from the Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman murders. And I don't think that's right. I'm not a fan of him. I don't know. He gained celebrity on Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman's murder. That's how he became famous and has celebrity now. And I didn't like it when he was on his episode of Celebrity Big Brother. And I don't know. It's just poor taste. I mean, yes, maybe he has the right to live his life and stuff, but a celebrity, really? Anyway, the HOH competition was called Kato Hot Tub Party. It was a ski lift in a hot tub on top of a mountain. That was the scenery. It's another physical competition. Ultimately, they had to undress down to their swimsuit while on the ski lift, and they had to keep 3 buttons depressed. So they had to keep the buttons pressed while they were undressing, right? And they had on ski coats and ski pants and skis, hats, like they had on a few layers of clothing. So the idea was you start, you sit, you push the buttons, you start, undress. Once they remove clothes, they'll have to jump in the hot tub. If they slip off any of the 3 buttons, the timer begins to run faster, and the object is to do this all in the fastest time, right? Yeah, that's primarily what it is. Okay. So the comp, it did look pretty difficult, and again, it's a physical comp. Overall, everyone participated except in St. Chris because he was the last HOH. And rather than go through everyone's performance, I'll just talk about a few standout performances. And they were SNL Chris. It seems like he just didn't care and didn't try. And maybe it was too physical for him. I don't know, but he just was there. Lamar, he could barely fit in the ski lift. He's so tall and the long limbs. But he could barely fit, and he did all right. At least he gave it a good try. And then Carson, he's always fun to watch. And I have to say that he is a competitor because he tried and he worked taking off the clothes. And he's not just there for looks. He actually tried and he's competing. And I like seeing that. We like Carson. All right. And as they revealed the times and the scores, we quickly learned why the live feeds are down so long. I mean, between Todd Bridges and SNL Chris and Cynthia's terrible performances, over an hour each. In fact, SNL Chris, he maxed out the time. Todd Bridges was like over an hour and Cynthia was over 70 minutes. This is why, you guys, the live feeds are always down so long. I mean, look how long they're taking. And just in contrast, like Misha's time, well, let me back up. Misha wound up winning. Okay, so her time was like 5 minutes and something. Todrick was like 8 minutes, and the others were like around 20 minutes. And then you had these 3. SNL Chris, he maxed out. Todd Bridges, over an hour. Cynthia, over an hour. And I'm like, what is happening? No, but I don't think the duration of the time was like an hour, because remember when you lift off of the buttons, the time speeds up, right? And so in theory, technically, I think it probably was like 10 or 15 minutes, but because they weren't pushing down those buttons, the clock ran faster. But wouldn't it be funny if they really did take over an hour? Or maybe they did. I don't know. But anyway, I was just trying to make a joke. All right, let's move on. So like I said, in the end, Misha wins. And this is psyching out everybody in the house. This is the part of the game that we always see even in the normal the regular version of Big Brother. When people start winning competitions, they are immediately called a comp beast. And everyone gaslights that person and say, oh, they're winning everything. They can do this, they can do that. And they psych themselves out. And I think that is a huge mistake, right? They almost are giving up or just giving up and saying, oh, Misha can win and stuff like that. Why I think that? This was her second HOH win. Yes, she's a physical threat. Yes, she won 2 physical competitions. But the game of Big Brother isn't just about the competitions, right? The game has different elements, different levels, right? To balance equally. You have competitions. Yes, that's one element. And by the way, you can't win HOH every week. So that I think people just start to psych themselves out and panic and just throw in the towel, almost saying that this person can win and they're a comp beast. I say no to that. Don't even start putting labels on people or anything like that, because that psychs you out. That does something to your game. But anyway, the other elements besides the physical competitions are the social element of the game. That's very important, as well as strategy. So Misha can win all she wants, but look who she's targeting. right? Is that good strategy? And what happens now if Carson leaves? What's the next step? Who's next? Has she given that thought? Like, this is what I'm saying. There are multiple elements of the game, and people are so focused on that one element, and they're letting them it's psyching them out, and they're like just messing with their own game. And we see this all the time, but of course, I'm not in the house. I'm not a house guest, so I suppose it's easier said than done. But we see this every season, and we see it every season. It's the same thing. This person's a comp beast. Da, 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 da. Okay. There's different elements of the game, right? Okay. Well, now that everyone is in their head saying that Misha wins everything and she's running the house, as viewers, we can see. I don't know. I already said what I need to say on that. I don't want to keep harping on that. Let me move on. It's interesting to see how NSYNC Chris and Shayna, how they're coasting through the game. And is coasting the right word? I mean, this was a big thing last year or the year before with Big Brother fans. They were talking about floaters and coasters, right? And coasters, they are technically aligned with a part of the house. And floaters are not. And a floater and a coaster can be used by either side, or could technically be pulled to one side or another, I think. But anyway, every time I use floater, people told me I use that term wrong. When I use coaster, they told me I use that term wrong. So I've decided that I'm just going to say NSYNC Chris and Shayna are technically in the middle of the house, right? Because if you think about it, we have Misha and Todrick. They're considered one side of the house, right? That's the face of one side of the house. And then we have Carson and Cynthia. That's the face of the other side of the house. Now on Misha and Todrick's side, we have Lamar, right? Then we also have Todd Bridges. He's kind of leaning that way, right? But he's technically not in their alliance, but he's leaning on that side. And we also have NSYNC Chris, right? Because he has an allegiance to Misha. And on the other side of the house, we have, let me also talk about Shayna. Shayna, she's close with NSYNC Chris, so she kind of leans to that side of the house when it's good for her. And on the other side of the house with Carson and Cynthia, NSYNC Chris and Shayna both lean that side of the house, or lean that way when it's good for their game. So they're going back and forth, which is good gameplay. And hopefully that doesn't catch up to them too soon. And SNL Chris, I don't know where he's at. But I guess why did I bring up NSYNC Chris and Shayna? I just wanted to compliment them, because I feel that NSYNC Chris and Shayna going back and forth like that, they're in a good position. And I feel like that's a good gameplay. And I don't know. I think that's going to work in their favor. And I don't know if any of the other house guests have really picked up on it. So that's interesting to see. Producers attempted to show America a softer side of Misha. And I'm sorry, I didn't have any empathy. I can't. I didn't feel anything with her story. Sorry. All right. Carson loves to luxuriate and wash the stress away with a Big Brother bubble bath. We watched him exfoliate. And Carson is just funny to me. I like watching him. He is playing the game. In that competition tonight, we saw that. We saw him win his power of veto. So he is playing the game. And I like Carson. I like watching him, and I'm entertained by him. Shayna fell up the steps twice. All right, we see that Carson and Cynthia ends up being the nominees. No surprise. Misha didn't give a reason for Carson that we saw in the episode, right? But like I said, she has it on a loop in her head that Carson is the biggest threat and she needs to get rid of him. That's all we've heard of her reasoning why. In terms of Cynthia and why she was nominated, it's because her game didn't align with Misha's. That's what Misha said. And to be fair, that's enough, right? That was a solid reason to be nominated. So, but Carson, I don't know if she has a reason other than the fact that Todrick put that in her head. Okay. And she keeps saying, she meaning Misha, Carson is a big threat. And I'm thinking, is he? What do you guys think? I don't know. I think Misha has blinders, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. And that's all I have for the recap on the episode. On the next episode that they air on CBS, we'll see who wins the POV and whether or not that shifts anything in the game. All right, quickly, let me go over some things that I saw in the live feeds. All right. And remember, when I'm giving information on the live feeds, I don't necessarily give spoilers. I just try to share moments that I think are pertinent to the game, in my opinion. All right. So I'm going to start with, and this first thing I'm going to say happened before the episode aired, but after the head of household. And I hope that makes sense because when we were watching the show air on CBS, these things have already happened. And most of the time we see some of these conversations on the live feeds, right? Okay. So on the live feeds, I saw that Misha is now worried. She's put a bigger target on her back because she's now won her second HOH. And I think she should be worried. All right. The next thing I saw was NSYNC Chris. He was spilling all the information to I put to them, and them, by them, I mean, let me start this sentence over. Okay. NSYNC Chris was spilling all of the information to Cynthia and Carson, in terms of Misha's intention of targeting Carson, right? So this is what I was speaking of earlier in terms of his placement in the house. So NSYNC Chris and Shayna, they're playing both sides of the house. And I think NSYNC Chris is a blind spot for Misha. And that is very dangerous for her. That's going to put her game in jeopardy. But he is definitely a blind spot. And in a conversation, am I going to mention that earlier? Oh, yeah. Oh, not earlier. I'll mention this later. But I'm just sharing that NSYNC Chris, he's very close to both sides of the house. He was talking with Carson and Cynthia to warn them that they are going to be targeted, that Misha is coming after Carson. And he is in a good spot because he can share information on that side. And he has an allegiance, or Misha has an allegiance to Chris. And I think NSYNC Chris is a blind spot for Misha. And that's going to put her game in jeopardy. For sure. Cynthia, let's see, earlier today or yesterday, Cynthia observed that Misha doesn't make an effort to connect with the girls. I agree, right? Misha is more of a guy's girl. And we kind of saw, someone said it on the episode that aired tonight, right? How many girls are left in the house? So we had Mariah and Teddy, Misha, Cynthia, and Shayna, right? Misha doesn't talk to anyone. She talked to Mariah, but she doesn't really talk to Cynthia. She didn't really talk to Teddy, and she doesn't even talk to Shayna. And Shayna, I mean, I've seen some things online, and I can't catch it on the live feeds, but other people on my timeline have caught it, and they've shared this video where Shayna called Misha an a-hole. And she can't stand her. That's what she said. She's an a-hole, and I can't stand her. But anyway, so Cynthia had a good observation, and she's right about that. She's a guy's girl, and she doesn't make an effort to connect with the girls, right? All right, the other thing, and this is more juicy than the other things. All right, so Misha and Todrick were in a conversation. Misha and Todrick were in a conversation. Now, this happened after the HOH. Um, yeah, this happened shortly after the HOH. So Todrick said, I wished I could have. Oh, let me go back. I'm on the struggle bus tonight with these papers. All right. Todrick wished he was brave enough to take this competition. He really wanted to win. He just knew he could win, and he was a little disappointed. And I think I'm so tongue-tied by this because as I was trying to write notes, I mean, Todrick, he talks a lot. He talks a lot, and he talks fast. It's hard to interrupt him when he talks. And I'm wondering if that's like a tick, or if it's like an insecurity or some type of anxiety or something, but it gives a negative impression to me. It's almost like, salesmen, they talk fast and stuff like that. Like he's trying to get over or trying to score a transaction or trying to do something. So you kind of hide it by talking so fast because people may miss out on it or so. I don't know. I'm not even being that articulate about it. I just know Todrick talks a lot. He talks fast, and it leaves a negative impression. I guess I can put a period. That's it. I also wanted to say about Todrick. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and I think we kind of saw this brewing in the episode. Well, I saw it brewing on the live feeds earlier, but in the episode tonight, they kind of touched on it. So Todrick, he's pretty much over NSYNC Chris. Apparently, he's been giving Todrick one-word answers and acting differently towards him. And in my opinion, this is what happens in the game. To me, in my opinion, this is what happens. All right, so in the beginning, like when we first started, there was an athletes alliance that Misha started, right? And it included Todrick, NSYNC Chris, and Lamar. Those were the original 4 people in that alliance. In parallel, NSYNC Chris and Shayna formed their own final 2. We didn't find out about that until later. As the game evolves, it's obvious of the ranking, right, in these alliances. And naturally, it doesn't sit well with some people, right? And so what do I mean? So Todrick and Misha, they're certainly the lead on that side of the house, right? And deep down, I think NSYNC Chris, he doesn't really like that because he wants to be the lead and in a position to have his final 2 with Shayna and be positioned well enough to be like a number 1 for Misha, right? In that alliance, or an alliance with Misha. And I think that's part of like fanning out and stuff like that. I really do. But Todrick ranks higher in that allegiance or in that alliance, right? Todrick ranks higher than NSYNC Chris to Misha, and he feels it. They know it. All of them know it. And I think that's like the core of what's happening, right? is who's closest to Misha. Even though he has a final 2 with Shayna, it's something about him being positioned well with Misha, and he knows he's number 2 after Todrick, basically. All right. I'm sorry about the pause. So I was trying to read my notes here, but ultimately, I think it's the ranking, right? So between Todrick, Misha, and NSYNC Chris, there's a ranking, and Todrick ranks higher than NSYNC Chris. That's bothersome to him, and I think that's at the core of what's going on. Yeah, that's all I want to say about that. The other thing I wanted to share, which was interesting to me, is that now NSYNC Chris is complaining about other house guests, about not cleaning up behind themselves. They're being lazy. He continues to refer to Todrick as a bully. NSYNC Chris and Todrick, they're just on the outs. And I really feel part of it has to do with the fact that Insane Chris is kind of jealous of the relationship that Misha and Todrick has. And Misha, in a conversation with Todrick, even mentioned that her allegiance are to both of them, but if she had to say who was first, her allegiance is first to Todrick and then to Insane Chris. And like I said, Insane Chris is a blind spot for Misha, and I think that's going to jeopardize her game in the very near future. Insane Chris and Shayna are sitting very nicely. They have their final two, and as long as they can win the next competition, I think they'll be fine. Carson is in jeopardy. I'm hoping that he wins the POV, but we have to see. Yeah, and I'm still entertained with the game. I'm still liking it. And I'll continue to watch the live feeds. And I'll continue to come back and recap. All right, and so that's all I have. So be sure to come back and give me a listen, give me a follow, subscribe, leave me a comment, leave me a message. You can find me by looking for Chatter Out Loud. I have this podcast, I tweet, and I'm on YouTube. So look for Chatter Out Loud and you'll find me. I also have links to where you can find me in the description, so please check that out. Yeah, and that's all I have. So my name is Danielle, and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate your support. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.